Welcome to LifeHerStyle, a podcast for Christian women who are ready to live boldly for Christ in every season of life. I'm your host, Kari, pastor's wife, ordained minister, toddler mama, and truth-speaking friend. Whether you're navigating motherhood, ministry, marriage, or your God-given mission, you'll find inspiration rooted in scripture and stories that point your heart back to Jesus. Tune in each week as we explore faith-filled living through the stories of ordinary women doing extraordinary things for Christ. Because her style of life, it's set apart. Let's do life her style. Hey everybody, welcome to a new episode of the LifeHerStyle podcast. We're in the new year, and I have a wonderful guest with me today. Her name is Alexandra Armstrong. She's a very multi-passionate person, but along with her long list of things that she does and her acumens, she is a pastor's wife. She is a mom. She is an outdoor enthusiast. And Alex, I just wanted you to kind of say hi to everybody, let them know, what makes you tick, what do you do, and give a little introduction.
Well, my name's Alex. My full name's Alexandra. I usually go by Alex. I am a pastor's wife. That was something I never expected to be when I was young growing up. So that was a real surprise, but that's been amazing. Like you said, I enjoy the outdoors a lot. And then career-wise, I'm a root cause nurse practitioner. So I got traditional training at university. And then after that, I went more into the functional side of things. But what I really do is look at your labs, look at your symptoms, and find the true cause of your symptoms and treat that versus treat your symptoms and get you restored to optimum health. So I've really enjoyed doing that the last 5 years. I work with both children and adults. So
wow. I follow Alex on Instagram. I would totally recommend you do the same because you're always sharing things that, I've never really thought about in my day-to-day health. And so sometimes you put things out there and it's like, man, I have never thought about that. You're big into red light therapy. I've seen you have like the box and then like the oral one. What what does that do for us? Like, I've heard all of the benefits, but I've never like dug into it.
yeah, well, I can just tell you a personal experience. I have my red light box on the floor, and I actually did the oral red light therapy before this podcast because it has a whitening device in it too. And I found that the whitening strips are really irritating to my teeth. They work great, but I couldn't stand the sensitivity. So this, I feel like, has been really great for the whitening, but then also it helps restore oral health. So if you've had root canals or a lot of dental work, it can help balance things in there. And then also the red light device that I have on the floor, it charges up your cells, so it gives you more energy. And I just found that my winter last year was so seamless using that, where prior, to using it, I felt like I had one of those chains where I was tearing off one each day as we got closer to spring and just counting down the days. But it just made my mood so much better last winter. And I actually had some cold damage on my toes last year from walking outside in the cold. And I used that on it, and immediately my toes felt better. So I was like, wow, that's a true testament to how well it actually works for inflammation, for healing. It's great for hair loss, great for acne, great for skin health. It really does amazing things. So it's been one of my favorite investments of last year.
So that's just a little snippet of what you'll get when you get to know Alex. You'll get to think about all these different things that maybe you hadn't considered before, and like seeing you utilize a lot of different things. I mean, from the way you eat to your, being grounded outside, is it bare feet to the ground? Is that what the benefit is?
So you could be in wool socks or cotton socks, but yeah, you want to be touching the ground. There's that joke about touching grass. That's actually good for us because there's energy coming off the earth. And it sounds kind of woo-woo, but I promise you I'm not that person. I'm 100% God is the creator, but he created this earth, and I believe that he created the earth for us to be healthy in. And so it's just utilizing that tool. But when you are touching the earth with your body, you're collecting electrons, and that's charging up your cells. But they've done studies where they have tested inflammatory markers like CRP, which is C-reactive protein, prior to grounding, and then it was elevated, and then after the grounding, it had gone down. So they've shown with blood work that grounding decreases inflammation in your body. So it's like a free tool. It's like you don't have to buy a supplement. You don't have to leave your home. You could ground in your basement if you have an unfinished basement that doesn't have a coat on the cement. So
do you incorporate these things with your clients, like when you're seeing clients?
yeah,
Yeah.
so I live and breathe what I'm talking about. And then I always say my job is not to like give you a list of things to do and then, give you a report card next time we meet. It's just I'm giving you the information I have. You make it work and fit into your lifestyle, but I'm not going to tell you to do things if I don't think they're beneficial. If I haven't seen them be beneficial. And like that study I was telling you about, that's a study where they've shown that it works. It's not just some like idea. But I think we've got so far away from true health that some of the things I talk about seem like it just either it wouldn't work or it's like, how could you possibly do all those things? Because we've just got so busy with our lives that we've got so far away from living, on this earth that God created. We're just like rush, rush, rush.
Yeah. So if you're tuning into this and it's the beginning of the year for you and you're like, I want to be more healthy, well, you've landed on the right podcast episode with Alex. We are going to talk a little bit about your spiritual life because that's the basis of being a healthy person and a healthy Christian. We've got to take care of our bodies, but we also need to take care of our souls. And I think that you merge the two really beautifully. And I love watching you. I love watching your family expanding. You're expecting right now as we speak. Is that correct?
Yes, we've
Yeah.
been blessed with another baby on the way. And so that was something I really had to trust God in because we were renovating our house for 4 years. We had mold in it. And I just felt like I shouldn't be bringing another child into this home right now. But I knew my age was increasing. I'm 40 this year. So I just had to trust God that He's going to provide for us. If we're supposed to have a child, that He'll give us one. If not, that's okay. But that was a real trusting in Him. And we just feel really blessed that He has given us another opportunity to have a child.
It's exciting, an exciting season, and hopefully an exciting year for all of us and for you and your family included. So, I always like to open up with a question about when did you say yes to Jesus, and how has your relationship with Him evolved since then? But I know you kind of have a testimony from before you said yes to the Lord, and so I wanted you to just share your spiritual journey. How did you come to know the Lord?
Okay, so I was raised very traditional Christian, which was such a blessing because I had that foundation down to know like here's right and wrong. I remember going into my parents' bedroom as a kid and asking God into my heart, and we went to church every Sunday. I was raised very modestly, but then at some point as a teenager, things had shifted in my family life. We weren't really going to church anymore. I first I had an eating disorder, and then that turned into an addiction to drugs, which I honestly don't talk about much. But having been now in this practice for 5 years, there's been times when I've needed to tell somebody that to give them hope because maybe they have a family member going through that, or maybe they are struggling with something themselves. And I don't feel like I don't have any different tools than somebody else besides now being, a child of God and having Him with me all the time. So that was a time when I don't feel like living for God because I was living in a lot of sin. You know, I didn't feel like I was in alignment with who I was supposed to be, but I had a true addiction. So it took me losing, like my family had disowned me basically. They said, don't come back here. I had no money because I'd spent it all on drugs. Was about to lose my career. I had graduated college, but I was because of my addiction, people were starting to notice like maybe something's not right. And luckily I decided, before something happened that I have to change my life because I remember the day that it happened, I was living in the country and I was just looking around, at all the things God had created. And I was thinking, I just have nothing. Like I have no friends. These people aren't my true friends. They don't really care for me. The things I'm doing aren't really getting me anywhere. I'm not getting really any pleasure out of all this. I have to change my ways. And so that was when my heart turned. But then it was years later, through asking more questions with my grandparents who really nurtured me, And then just going through more struggles that I was like, I need to go back to church. And then in 2018, I got baptized at a church in New Jersey. And that was a big turning point for me. And then I just continued to grow closer to the Lord. And then I moved to Omaha and found a great church there, was really involved there. And then in 2020, I met my now husband, who's a pastor. And when we met at the gym, we spent like 2 hours talking about Revelations. So that was our first date. And the rest is history, basically.
That's so awesome. I didn't know that you met at a gym. Was this in Omaha or was it somewhere else?
I was back in Tokyo for like Thanksgiving break or something.
All right. That's so cool. I didn't know that part of your story. I love doing these just so I can learn about people because it's like I didn't know that beforehand. Your testimony is a beautiful one, and I'm so glad you shared it because there are so many people I know out there that kind of feel like they're alone in that. And especially people that are in recovery that are kind of rebuilding their life. It's possible. And it's possible with the Lord. And I think that that's what made the difference in your life. And now here you are, thriving pastor's wife, growing a family, doing well, living a healthy lifestyle. I think all those are wonderful things. And the Lord can do that for us. And so I appreciate you taking the time to share that part of your history. Because and I've said this before in different episodes, like we all have stuff. There's stuff in all of our histories. It looks different for everybody. It's not always this or that, but everybody has things. And sometimes we try to cover it up because, well, first of all, you go deep in conversation when you reveal things about yourself. And it's like, am I ready to like have a full conversation about this aspect of my history? But sometimes it's self-preservation. And it's like, that's the beauty of our testimony is that's who we were. It's not who we are and how God can like redeem a life that's so far lost and bring you back and set you on the right path is a beautiful thing. And I've mentioned it before too about the prodigal son story and how it's such a beautiful thing to realize that you can lose everything. You can wander so far. And yet when you come back home to your father, there's a celebration waiting. And so if somebody is out there right now and you're listening to this and thinking, I'm so far away, I've lost so much, all hope is not lost. And when you come to the Lord, God can change your life and do miracles in your life. And so thank you for sharing that bit of your testimony. So you're also a pastor's wife. But how is your home life like? Because you do have a little girl. You're kind of a blended family. How do you try to minister under your own roof?
So first of all, I have a wonderful husband who's a leader and a very strong leader, which I think makes a huge difference. And he's so grounded in the word and so by the book. It's like yes or no, exactly what the Bible says. And I'm like, wow, that just takes all the questions out of things. And so that's been a big part of it. But then I think it's just how you live your daily life. Like if we're listening to music, I just surrender my music because I really used to like EDM and rap music. And now if I listen to that, it's like razor blades in my ear. But I'm like, my daughter cannot be around those things. So it's been switching our music. And so, now when you listen to that music, you wake up with praise songs. I hear my daughter on the toilet and she's in there singing praise songs, mixing it with songs about pooping. I'm like, okay, we're doing a good job. But talking about Jesus and how he can help us. So like when we were trying to have a baby, we were very open with her about it. And she had come to this conclusion that if I pray and ask God, he might give us a baby. So, and reading stories about God and talking about like what would he want us to do. So it's just incorporating it all into our daily life and talking about who gave us the seeds and where's the sun come from and all those things. I think that just brings it all together. And then I did get the opportunity to start teaching Sunday school a couple years ago, which has been amazing for me because I felt like when I met my husband that I was like a new Christian. He's like, I'm a pastor. I'm like, oh, this is not going to of work. I am not ready to be a pastor's wife. I am a baby Christian. I just came back to being a Christian. Like, I am not ready because I'm stepping into this church where people have been going there for their whole lives. And I'm like the newcomer that's a new Christian, and I'm supposed to be in this leadership role. And I'm like, no, 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 I'm not ready. And my husband was so, he was so great. He was like, all you have to do is just support me. That's the only thing you need to do. And I think he just knew that, like, I have this conviction to do what's right, and I'm not gonna be embarrassing him, and because I have this desire to please the Lord internally, I think, and that's his conviction to me, and I'm so thankful he kept convicting me because that's what initially made me change my mind and change my life around. But I think, if the thing that's been the biggest change for our home life is just incorporating everything, like I said, like in the daily life, in the daily walk.
Sometimes it's as simple as like conversations that we have with our kids. Like, hey, you like this leaf over here? God made that leaf. And I think it's funny too. You talk about her merging songs with, pooping songs. And like our daughters are very, very close in age. Like they were both born within weeks of each other, if I recall correctly. And so like knowing that your daughter does similar things, okay, like we're on the right path. Maybe we need to work on the theological aspect at some point, but they're getting it.
Yeah.
And so that's when I feel like that it's working. Because your kids absorb what you give them to absorb. And so if she is singing worship songs, if she's talking about the Lord, that's just a reflection of the conversations that you're having with her throughout, the day and as she grows. And we try to do the same thing, with us too, always bringing things back to the Lord. Regardless of what you're looking at, we've seen some hard stuff in ministry, and I'm sure you've probably seen the same. And having to explain to our kids, well, this is why this person passed away, and this person is sad because of it, and having to kind of walk your kids through ministry as they're growing too, because they're preachers' kids. Like they're going to see things and have to understand things in a different way. And so sometimes it's just the conversations and being open and pointing them back to the Lord. Those are the successes for us. And if she's singing on the toilet, then you're doing the the job you need to. So, as a pastor's wife, what does a Sunday morning look like for you now?
It looks the same as every other day. I'm very much a creature of habit. I have my things I have to do every day. It's like get up, get into the Word. I use the Bible app, and then Tara Lee Cobble's Bible recap, which this is my third time going through, and I still love it. So I do that every morning. Then I go on a walk by myself, and I give the first 10 minutes to the Lord in silence. And because I feel like if you always have noise coming in, you're not going to hear him speak. You need to have that time to be open for him to talk to you. And then, we get back home, get breakfast going. And then on Sundays, we usually get ready and we have some praise music on for JoJo. It's usually like kids praise music. And then we go to church, we have Sunday school, we have church, and then we have a family meal on Sunday, and usually we have an evening service. So I think it's, about the same as anyone else's Sunday. If you're going to church, there's just a little bit more preparation around it. But
yeah. What time do you get up in the morning?
So I get up around 5.
Around 5. See, that I need to be more like that, and it's just so difficult. I've seen your posts about like watching the sunrise, and I'm like, that's a beautiful idea. And I'd sleep right through an alarm at this.
I don't know. I've always been like that, but we're in bed by 8:30. So to get enough sleep, which is so, so important. Luckily, JoJo's an amazing sleeper. She's down at 7, up at 7, basically. She wasn't like that initially, but she's a really good sleeper now. So we have that blessing. But yeah, I like the early mornings, that time to myself. That's my most productive time where I'm like, go, go, go. And my husband's the exact opposite. He's like, sit, relax, drink coffee. I'm like, go in here, go in here, go in here, do this, do this. So it's interesting. He keeps me grounded. I keep him going. So
I think you have to marry somebody that you can challenge, because if you're both exactly alike, then what growth is there to be had? At least you can kind of, iron sharpening iron here. My husband is constantly like trying to get me to go to bed earlier, try to get me to get up earlier. And I'm like, listen, this is a lifelong rhythm I've set here. It's going to take a lifetime probably to undo all that I've done wrong in my sleep habits. So I love that, when you were saying that you took a walk, I was like, I wish I could do that. At this point, if my feet hit the floor, our daughter is up immediately. Like I think she just senses or hears the creaks in the old squeaky floor, and then it's like, oh, I'm up. So the idea of me like getting up and getting a walk in before she wakes up, non-existent in my mind. But if I woke up at 5, quite frankly, it might be possible. I just have to get myself in that mentality. So we kind of started off by talking a little bit about your work and helping people kind of find the root cause for their illness. So how do you incorporate your faith in your work?
back when I originally started my business in 2021, I was praying about this because it was so important to me. And my mentor, Emily Morrow, at the time was so faith-based too. So I'm like, how could I bring this in without, because you're trying to build a business. So you're like, I need to have some income. So I don't want to turn like, you have that fear of like, if I just share it, like maybe it's going to be too much for people and you won't have any clients. But I put it on my follow-up form. Would you like prayer during our session? So I offer prayer. And I do also have that on my intake form is, do you attend church? I don't remember exactly how it's worded, but people will put yes or no, or like I pray all the time, or some people will put I'm more spiritual, not religious, so you kind of know. But then I always put that on my form for follow-up is would you like me to pray with you? So that's one way. And I think also just talking about my experience with my health and the things that I feel like God has provided for me, like just peace, like with the fertility journey, like just having peace. It's like, God's got this. He's already got this all planned. I just need to trust him for this. And just sharing that with somebody. I think people may know that, but they just need to hear that again. Like, here's what God did for me. And then they're like, oh yeah, like I know another story like that, because it was hard for me to even say like, hey, we're going to have a baby when I have people that I'm seeing that are struggling with miscarriages, and you almost feel guilty saying like, hey, I'm pregnant, but then you realize that they're still waiting. But you just have to reassure them that God hears you, he knows your desire. So we just have to trust him and the timing and what he's going to do for you.
Yeah.
So.
At the same time, it can also give women hope too, like your story and the ways that God blesses you, and hope, that's my prayer, is that especially in the women that you're seeing that maybe still be waiting, they can see you and think, if God can do that for her, I can trust him with my future and whatever he wants to bring my way. And so I know when I saw your post that day, like I was just so excited for you, knowing just little bits of your history and the desire to have another child. And so to me, it gave me hope because we're about the same age, and I'm like, I'd like to have another child. I don't know if that is in God's plan for my future or not, but to see what he's done for you, it's like, hey, that gives me a little bit of hope. Thanks so much for tuning in to LifeHerStyle. If today's episode encouraged you, share it with a friend, leave a review, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Want to keep the conversation going? Come hang out with me on Instagram at LifeHerStyle. I'd love to connect with you there. And for deeper devotionals, resources, and encouragement straight to your inbox, join the LifeHerStyle community on Substack at lifeherstyle.substack.com. Until next time, remember, your life, your walk, your style. Do it all for the glory of God.